I was the first woman president of Ireland, elected in 1990 and served for 7 years. And then I was appointed UN High Commissioner for Human Rights and served in that position for 5 years. And at the end of it, I wanted to link development and human rights. So I created Realising Rights, a small organisation. And for 8 years, we worked mainly in African countries. And that's when I learned more and more about the negative impact of climate on people's lives, particularly the poorest, subsistence farmers, indigenous peoples, etc. And I realised that this needed to be highlighted. And I was coming back to Ireland anyway and determined to be based here for the rest of my life. So I've now established the Mary Robinson Foundation Climate Justice with a number of colleagues. And we're linking development, human rights and climate and seeking to have the injustice of the fact that climate change is caused by our fossil fuel based lifestyles, and it's impacting on the poorest who actually haven't access to electricity or fossil fuel. What we want to focus on is getting the voices and the concerns of those most affected, who are not people who have access to power and influence directly, and to help to amplify their voices, get their voices out, connect them with those who are the decision makers, and make sure that those voices are heard. I was very pleased in Durban that because it was on the continent of Africa, there were lots of voices. There was a caravan of hope that had come from Burundi all the way to South Africa. And we've done it in particular with women. So we have women at grassroots level who can talk about the reality of their lives, that they have no access to electricity, that they could go a long way for firewood, that it's affecting their lungs, etc., and that they are badly impacted, that most of the farmers in Africa are women, and so they have a direct experience of how climate is affecting them. I mean, I've just been struck by how severe the climate impact is in so many African countries. In many cases, it just means that they don't have any predictable seasons. They have long periods of drought and then flash flooding. In Liberia, where I've been quite a bit and know President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf very well, I mean, she just complained, you know, Mary, we used to have predictable rainy seasons twice a year. Now, I don't know when the rains are going to come, and then when they come, they stay for so long, and I can't mend my roads, which is, you know, a reality. I'm delighted to be here in UCC for two reasons. One, because I'm taking part with my colleague Tara Shine in a workshop with a number of researchers and experts in different areas who have been brought together by the Centre for Global Development to showcase, in a way, work that's being done on food security issues, on energy issues, on women's leadership issues, etc. And I think we will benefit hugely from that, and I hope we can have a conversation about continuing to work together. And then I've been invited to speak this evening here in UCC, but the audience will be both staff and students and wider public. And it will be a chance to talk about climate justice, talk about what the Foundation was doing when we were in Durban recently. We were working on the need for a new climate agreement, and we have in principle that agreement now, so we have to work out how we're going to get all countries to agree to take their share of responsibility and be part of this. Secondly, we wanted to focus on food security and climate smart agriculture. And again, Durban gave a certain momentum to that. It didn't go the whole way, but it gave enough for that to be now a big issue over the coming months. And we brought our experience of women's leadership. We had a meeting of women leaders, including the chair of the conference, Mighty Mashaban, the minister from South Africa. And we will carry that forward now to the next big conference, which is on energy, Rio+20. And I'm loving the work because it's intensely human rights. It's linking development, human rights, and the way in which climate is undermining the poor lives of the poorest, and that they need justice. And we've got to, and I think Ireland is a good country to have this foundation in, because we've always had a good reputation and record on linking with developing countries, supporting, and doing it from a bottom-up sort of way, listening and really trying to help poor countries to come out of poverty. And now, on this climate issue, we need to have very good thinking from Ireland and some leadership. I suppose I came to the climate issue from a human rights perspective. The first public talk that I gave on climate was in London in Chatham House, because I was chairing the board of the IIED on environment and development. And we were having the first Barbara Ward lecture. Barbara Ward was a wonderful woman who founded IIED, and she was, I don't know whether this is fair to say it this way, but she was the Al Gore of her day.
Right.
And she wrote a lot about climate, and she wrote beautifully. And so when I was invited to give the first Barbara Ward lecture, I was kind of thinking, how am I going to bring these thoughts together about development and human rights, but the impact of climate? So I wrote, and the heading was Climate Change and Justice, which I think was interesting, and then we just pushed the two together. I was very worried before Durban. Hopeful is probably putting it a bit strongly. We now have a real basis to work, but what I have inside me is a huge sense of urgency. And I saw that urgency in all the groups that came together from different parts of Africa, the women's groups, those addressing poverty issues, the farmers, they were all urgent. And even some of the representatives of African countries had that sense of urgency. But in the delegates' meeting room, it was as if they had all the time in the world, and I was really concerned. So when we got, at least in principle, an agreement that we need a new climate regime, and that we have to have it by 2015, that's a basis to really work on. And when I got the signal that they're really going to look at climate-smart agriculture and food security, again, that's to be worked on. And we did bring out, we saw the success of the Troika Plus of women leaders, because we did bring out the gender dimension. And that's not just political correctness. There's a huge difference in the way that climate impacts on poor women and poor men. Women are the farmers, women collect the firewood, and if everything is worse, it's so much worse for the women. And they need the access to affordable renewable energy. And that access to affordable renewable energy is a key to changing women's lives for the better, and their families, their children and their families. Because if they have light in the home that is safe, not the kerosene or the candles or the firewood, then the children can do their homework. It frees up the woman's time to be productive. It means that the house is a safe place, and it has all kinds of very positive health and other spin-offs. I'm very much somebody who likes to bring out the direct witness of those who are suffering. I did that as High Commissioner in situations of conflict, the victims, that their voices would be heard. Now it's a sort of climate witnesses. You know, there's been a lot of attempt to deny the science. Frankly, there's been a lot of money to be lobbies to deny and to pay for bad science and to deny the reality. And when you hear these human stories, and when you hear the resilience and the leadership at local level coping with these problems, with no insurance, no fallback position, but trying to rebuild the school, remake the clinic, women's groups coming together, these are the kinds of stories. And then that sense that more and more of these people recognize the reality. A good friend of mine now, Constance O'Kellett, who lives in northern Uganda. She's a mother of 8, and she's one of these climate witnesses. And she puts it very directly. She says, when we had no seasons anymore, and when we had this prolonged drought and then flash flooding and our school was destroyed, we thought God was punishing us. And then we learned that it was the lifestyles of rich people. And that stops everybody, you know. Absolutely. Yeah. And that is part of the climate justice. We have to understand that we have a responsibility, but it isn't all a negative, burdensome responsibility. If we can change the world to predominantly using renewable, affordable, renewable energy, it will change. We'll fight poverty much better. All of our lives would be influenced for the better. And Ireland, you know, is going in that direction. If it can go as fast as possible, it will be good for investment in Ireland. It'll be good for budgets in households in Ireland because we'll become more energy efficient. It'll be good for every aspect of Irish life.